Welcome to Toni Unleashed, the podcast where we unleash the truth about all things pets.
Our research and anecdotal evidence matched with pet expert interviews will help you help your pet thrive.
We are here to answer questions, divulge information, and spread awareness about what's really going on in the world of pets.
I am your co-host, Emily Taylor, pet nutrition enthusiast.
And I'm Toni Shalaski, owner of Healthy Pet Products with 3 locations in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, and recently expanded to Port Charlotte, Florida.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome back to another episode of Toni Unleashed, the podcast. It has been brought to our attention that we need to record an episode about our animals, their stories, and what they eat and why. These animals are a huge part of our story and led us to where we are today. So in future episodes, we will reference them again and give a brief background when mentioning them to make things less confusing and easier to understand for our listeners. So there's 4 to 5 animals between Em and I that we're going to talk about, including one that has since passed. So that means Meg. And
Yeah, Meg was around when I started working with you.
Yeah.
And she was really, I think, the reason why I think we were talking about this earlier, why we really need to include her in our story is because she was a dog that started off like many dogs that have relationships with now that were on like via customers that started off on Purina or like mainstream kibble that switched to raw and have also had cancer.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have a very similar story and can relate a lot to Meg's story, and that she's helped us all. We're all where we are today, partially because of her. And Desoto and Bo, which we're going to talk about, are where they are today because of her.
And many other animals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So Meg was my dog. And
Where did you start from the beginning? How, did you get her as a puppy? I don't know the beginning stories of how you got Meg.
So Princess passed. Princess was my very first dog from childhood. And Princess lived 18 years. So Princess passed, and maybe we won't talk about Princess today. But Princess passed, and because she was my first dog and lived so long, I really needed a break. So I did not get another dog for about 8 months.
I thought you were going to say like at least 2 years.
No, it was 8 months. So my boyfriend at the time, Dave, we literally took a day and we went from Animal Friends, and Animal Friends was still in the Strip District at the time. So we went from Animal Friends, we went to the Western Pennsylvania Humane Society at the time. And then what was the name of the shelter that's now Humane Animal Rescue?
Animal Rescue League.
Animal
right?
Rescue League.
Yeah.
Yes. So we went to all 3 shelters in one day. And I won't go into the whole rigmarole of every single shelter, but at Animal Rescue League is where I found Meg.
How many dogs have you seen? Did you look at before Meg?
I mean, I considered probably 2 other dogs.
Okay.
And one was very similar to Princess in looks and shape and size.
Which could be a whole episode on why you should not get a dog that looks exactly like your last perfect dog.
Exactly. And that's what Dave said to me. Dave was like, you are drawn to her because she reminds you of Princess.
And that she's not going to be Princess.
And she's not going to be Princess.
Right.
And as fucked up as Dave was and as many negative things as like he 100% was right.
Yeah.
Plus that dog was at the back of the kennel shaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wanted to save that dog.
Right.
So then that was at Animal Friends in the Strip District. So then we go to Animal Rescue League and we literally are winding through the kennels. And I turn the corner and I see Meg. And Meg was going from corner to corner to corner to corner of her kennel and standing on her back legs, clawing at each corner. And I swear to God, she was screaming, I don't belong here.
Yeah. And she was an adult.
She was nearly an adult.
Okay.
And I literally saw what she was doing, and broke down in tears.
Yeah.
So we we went into an adoption room, did a little meet and greet. Dave had a daughter that was 2 years old at the time. And I said, well, we can't do this unless we bring Jess down.
Right.
And make sure that goes okay. So they put a hold on her. We brought Jess down the next day. We went in the meet and greet room. Meg was perfect with Jess. And then we adopted her.
Real quick, before we proceed with the story, I think, this whole episode is a lot about showcasing our Toni and I's personalities, talking about our stories, the animals who shaped us to our today. But this story in particular shines a light on part of Toni's personalities and my personality as well, that will help, with our listeners understand us, which is gut feeling.
Yeah.
And I think we so believe in our guts. We so believe in our intuition. We so believe in signs and meanings and things happen for a reason and astrology and all of that.
Yep.
And from the story that this is my first time hearing it as well, is that you are not a crier and you're not one to show emotion. Mm-hmm. And for you to break down like that and for your past self to take that as a sign, a gut feeling that this was your dog says a lot about just your personality and who you are and everything.
Definitely. So that was February 12th, 2002. So that's literally 20
years ago.
20 years ago, almost 21. So I have this dog and I was signed up as soon as
Did you live in this house that we're in right now?
No.
Okay.
I was in an apartment.
You were in an apartment.
But I owned the apartment building.
For sure.
That's where Chad lived.
Okay.
Did you know Chad?
Yeah, I knew Chad.
So I owned that 4-unit apartment building.
Yeah.
And So I was in one of the apartments.
Okay.
So Dave and I were lived in this apartment. We got Meg. I was already signed up for training classes.
Okay.
So
And is this your first time as an adult on your own bringing in a shelter dog?
No, because John and I, my ex-husband, we adopted Sadie.
Okay.
From a shelter when we lived in New Jersey. That's a whole other story.
Okay.
So this is my second, but this was
your dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was already signed up for training classes and very excited about it and did everything the training class told me, did everything by the book. Meg was a perfect dog. It wasn't me, even though I was doing everything, but she was a perfect dog. And Meg came to me on Purina One. So at that time, I didn't know any better. So I bought the little triangle-shaped kibbles and continued feeding Purina One. Mm-hmm. And Meg was probably an adolescent.
Right. So to be fair, now knowing what we know, though, I feel like it is fair to keep a dog, transitioning a dog from a shelter environment to a new home environment is already so stressful.
Yes.
And that could lead to stressful loose stool and loose bowel movement. I think it's very safe to say it's okay to keep your dog on what they're used to for a month or two.
Yes.
While they're adjusting, transitioning, and everything.
Agreed. And we moved. And
right.
We moved from an apartment and bought a house, moved into the house. So she continued to feed Purina One. And in hindsight, the funny thing is, I remember Meg yelping and biting at her butt sometimes.
Oh,
so
really?
So she probably had anal gland issues that literally went away with raw food. So I had Meg. She's eating Purina One, sorry. And I walked into a grooming salon in Bellevue just to inquire about services. And literally as I walked into the grooming salon, the groomer, who also was a collie breeder, was handing her collies raw chicken legs. And this is
and you didn't have Meg at the time. You with you.
She wasn't. Meg was not with me. I was just alone.
And for our listeners, pre-healthy pet products.
Oh yeah, pre-healthy pet products.
Okay.
So I walk in and she's literally handing raw chicken legs to her dogs, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "You can't do that. you're going to kill your dog. You cannot feed raw chicken to your dogs. And she said, yes, you can. And she's like, this is how my dogs eat.
That is so crazy. This is like full circle of what people probably say to you.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? You can't feed your dog raw meat. You're going to get sick. Your dog's going to get sick.
I don't hear it as much as I used to.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And then she proceeded to tell me about a couple of different books. And one of them was Dr. Ian Billinghurst's book, Feed Your Dog a Bone. And she let me borrow one of her books. And then I bought Ian Billinghurst's book and I read them. And literally the next day I switched Meg to raw food.
So how long had she been on Purina with you before that moment?
Probably about 4 months.
Okay. So she was probably on Purina for the first year of her life.
First year, for sure. First year of her life. So we cold turkeyed to raw food and never looked back. She never had diarrhea. She never had any digestive upset whatsoever going from Purina one day to raw the next day. And
no more anal gland issues.
No more anal gland issues, which I didn't even realize at the time was kind of like an issue.
Yeah.
But it's an issue.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the digestive system. So that's kind of how it started. And I think Meg was about 3 years old. I was petting her and I felt about a pea-sized lump on her forearm, like what her front leg, about 3 inches above her paw, the joint and everything. I felt like a unusual bump. So I called and made an appointment with Dr. Doug. He's our local holistic vet. And he did a biopsy and it came back that it was malignant and it was called a neurosarcoma. And it was basically a tumor at the end of a nerve,
Okay.
So he took it off. He got clean margins, all good. And I'm like, so I did research, and with him the way he is, I'm like, well, I feel like I should give these supplements to support the cancer. And it was like a Chinese herb that was a liquid. I don't even remember what it was. I think it started with a K. Mm-hmm. So we did that. We did all these supplements, and she continued to eat nothing but raw food, which primarily I made myself or mail ordered, and nothing ever happened.
At that time, were there a lot of so now you can walk into even like a pet food or a Petco or a PetSmart and get some aspect of raw.
There was fucking nothing.
Okay.
I mean, there was Instinct.
Yeah.
Which was Nature's Variety at the time.
Right.
And I had to go to Burton's.
Okay.
And he had a double-doored freezer that was packed and everything was freezer burnt because nobody ever bought it.
Right.
So I literally, for the most part, kind of did my own thing.
Yeah.
And I juiced at the time. So the pulp from my juice was my
roughage.
Went into her. Yeah. And then I mail ordered stuff in from a place for paws in Ohio.
Wow. They were in business then.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. And their stuff was gorgeous.
It still
is.
Yeah.
And they had tripe and they had all that.
Wow.
So that's what I did with Meg. So she kind of was we kind of were a DIY.
When the time that you switched Meg to raw food, which was 4 months-ish after you adopted her, when did you open Healthy Pet Products?
So I adopted Meg February 12th, 2002, and I opened Healthy Pet Products in October 2008.
Wow. So you had already been living this raw fed.
Like 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Wow. And I begged the current owners of Healthy Pet Products, literally begged them to carry raw food.
So what do you know? Do you remember what brands were available at that time other than Nature's Variety?
That was it. I mean, okay. Bravo was probably the next one.
Older, yeah. Wow.
That was it. And Steve's was probably next.
Follow-up question. Did you do at this time, like you've already switched her to raw, Did you continuously vaccinate her, or did you?
No.
Okay.
She never got vaccinated.
Okay. Did you titer her,
The first,
or you just
the
winged it?
first time I titered her was probably, I have all her records. I should have looked up all this.
Yeah.
But I did titer her probably 4 or 5 times in her life.
Wow, that's a lot.
Like every few, because
Okay.
she lived 15 years.
Yeah. And then at what point was she diagnosed with cancer?
The second time?
Yeah.
Not till she was 15.
15. Wow.
But there were signs before.
Yeah. I mean, but what could you do? You're already feeding her raw. She's already not being overly vaccinated.
I could have had
We
an
don't know-
ultrasound that would have seen the tumor, and I could have had the tumor removed. And she
How
would
do
have.
you how do you know where how do you know that?
Now how?
But how did you know?
I think
So you don't know for sure that it was removable.
if I had caught it early,
Yeah.
I think it could have been removable.
Interesting. So then what were the signs?
She stopped jumping up on the bed.
Yeah, but why? How do
I
you know?
know.
So many
I
dogs
know.
do that.
I know. But
Yeah, what age?
so I think
Sid's over here. Sid, our producers over here are freaking out. We both have dogs that can't jump on the bed.
But it was a behavior change. It was more than just a physical change. That was an emotional behavior change. I feel in hindsight.
So where do you think the tumor was then?
I know where it was. It was in her duodenum.
Okay.
So that connects the small intestine and the large intestine.
Mm-hmm.
And
we know from listening to the series that your digestive tract and your gut health and your digestive health is so much of your overall immune system and your overall health, which leads to personality traits and function and care and everything.
yeah. And I don't know, like Meg's teeth were bad for a raw fed dog. A
Right.
raw fed dog does not have bad teeth. Like
Right.
Dr. Doug used to have to scale her teeth every time. And he'd be like, her teeth are bad. And I'm like, she chews on both. She da 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 da. And there was no reason for it. So I think that was it. And she was, in hindsight, and I don't want to freak people out,
Yeah.
but she was picky at times. And her stool was flat. Like, as weird as that sounds, like it was not round or like a lumpy round. It was flat. So I think that
The tumor was like a roller.
was
Yeah.
put. Yeah, I really
pressure on
do.
that.
And I remember her not jumping on, because Meg slept between my legs all the time. So I remember when she stopped jumping into bed, and I was like, well, that's weird. But it was also at the same time that I broke up with Dave and I moved out of the house and we went into an apartment.
So
and
you thought it was stress related.
so I could have, so I thought it was like just,
if you lifted her up on the bed.
she would stay,
Okay.
but then like it was a difference. So I guess for our listeners, I guess I don't want to overly make you worry.
So here, I can full circle
but
this.
listen, but pay
you
attention.
know
your
dogs better than any vet will ever know your dog because they are your dog. You see them every single day. You know their personalities. You know their behaviors. And even full circling back to the beginning of this episode where you touched on like your gut and your intuition and your sense of self and your sense of whatever. I mean, I think it's just so important, and why we do this podcast and why we're here to educate you is to empower pet owners who know their animals to care for them the best way that they know their pets
definitely.
and what their pets need. And that is situational.
And I hear customers, we all can say it, but we talk to customers and we hear over and over again, there's something not right. There's just something not right. And our pets cannot communicate at a level that we understand. So we have to be their advocates. So when the vets continue to not find things and not find things and not find things, I think we just shouldn't give up.
Right.
But we're labeled as, crazy, but we're not crazy.
And there are things that one pill can't fix.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, we're the only voice our animals have.
Right. So Meg twice had cancer. And I really think, so I bought Healthy Pet Products at October 2008. I broke up with Dave May 2009. And Meg didn't die until May of 2016. So I really think she had a tumor a very good portion of her life in her duodenum. Yeah.
Sydney asked, who is our producer and our reeler inner, if there was anything that Toni, say that, someone comes to Toni with like a similar story. Was there a supplement that you would recommend over ultrasound?
So I should have never stopped doing preventive supplements. I thought raw was enough. And not vaccinating and not doing chemical flea and tick. I should have never stopped. I don't think it would have avoided her dying of cancer or avoided her maybe of having that tumor, because that tumor could have been there all along, honestly.
It really could have. Yeah.
It really could have. And I've had this conversation with many people over the years, customers, employees, colleagues, people in the pet industry, those of us in the raw feeding community, because we feed raw, because we don't vaccinate, because we don't use chemical flea and tick, blah, blah, blah. There's no cure-all. There's no...
And put it in terms for to relate it back to humans, I... am mostly vegan, so I don't eat animals. But, I always think I should be taking mushrooms. I mean, that is so good for my immune system. I'm fine. I feel fine. I'm an average height, an average weight, an average health. But I should be drinking more kombucha, more fermented foods. I should be consuming more mushrooms for my cognitive ability, my cognitive health, my immune system, my respiratory system, everything. I should be eating more sprouts, and I should be being more aware of the protein that I consume. But I'm still walking around and functioning like I am a fine, healthy person. But yeah, I should be supplementing my diet and my care and my health and everything just to better myself for aging, because we all age and we're all going to be going through that, and you're just better preparing yourself for it. And dogs age so much quicker than we do.
Degeneration is what we're battling against, and oxidation and all of that. But I guess my main point is, because you do all these things, there's no guarantees in life. You don't know. But I
can look back and probably say, you did the best that I thought I was doing.
Oh my God.
For what I had, for what I could do.
And did she live the best life she possibly could have for 15 years? She absolutely did. She was the highest energy level, the happiest energy. She was just at her optimum that she could have possibly been for 15 years. I have a video of her literally, I think it's a week before she died, of her obsessed with getting a chipmunk that was in a log in my backyard. She just wouldn't let it go. She just continued to hunt and hunt and hunt and hunt. And the day she died, we took a walk in the woods and she hiked back up the hill, and she was, everything you want someone to be that you love until the day that they die.
So did you make the decision?
Yeah. I mean, it would have been a horrible death.
Yeah.
I mean, her gums were white. I had to.
Yeah. I think that could be another episode too,
Yeah.
talking about
Definitely another episode.
the end of life for
Yeah.
animals and what's humane and what's ethical and making
Yeah.
that decision. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
sometimes the timing works out where you don't have to, but that doesn't always happen.
Right. So
then
there's no guarantees, but
you're doing the best that you did, the best that you could. You have no regrets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, other than maybe adding more supplements, but you could always add more of anything.
you could.
And that you don't know if that's going to change anything.
Yeah.
So 8 months from your last dog to Meg. What was the time frame from Meg to Bo?
Oh. Well, so it was me and Meg, and then Bob entered the picture, and Bob had 2 labs.
That's right. I forgot about the 2 labs.
So Blade and Josh both
Yeah.
died of cancer.
Yeah. Josh first, then Blade.
Josh died at like 8.
Yeah.
And that was a nasal tumor that was undiagnosed. That's a very long story. And then Blade died of cancer. We still had both. Oh, fuck. I don't remember. I don't remember when Bo came. Blade was definitely still here, but I don't think Josh was. Josh was gone.
Because I don't remember Josh at all, but I do remember Blade.
So-
Vaguely. But that was before you and I were like friendly. Co-workers.
So we had Blade and Meg, and then we got Bo.
So Meg was still around when you had Bo.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have pictures of,
All 3 of them.
yeah. So then Bo came to us, and Bo is a blue healer, and we are his third home. And the reason why we are his third home is because Bo likes to be a healer.
Healers are tough.
And he likes to nip people and bite people. And so we got Bo.
He's
and
very much like, I feel like his personality is very much the grandpa we all have had that is set in his ways,
yeah,
doesn't give a fuck,
right,
and enjoys his life the way he wants to enjoy it.
right.
And that screams Bo to
And
me.
if he feels like being happy and
Yeah. If he's
and-
like, when your grandpa's like a little tipsy, he's a little extra friendly.
yeah, and he'll give you a little wag.
Yeah. That's Bo.
That's Bo.
When he's at a little extra CBD, he's like,
And then
I'm going to enjoy this company tonight. but
Otherwise,
don't
get the
used
fuck
to it.
away from me.
Yeah.
Like Bo is super independent. He doesn't even really like to be pet. He's fine on his own, and he's definitely mellowed over the years because he will be 14 in January.
He does not look 14 by any means whatsoever.
And so for listeners, I mean, a true healer typically weighs high 30s to 40 pounds. So Bo, especially being a true classic height and everything, when we adopted him, he was 58 pounds.
Oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
That is
58 pounds.
terrifying.
All pedigree.
That is terrible because I didn't know him.
Pedigree
When he was-
corn fed.
That
Not grass finished.
and I would be
just corn
biting
fed.
people if I was corn fed,
Right?
corn finished, and coffee table sized.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, I'm miserable. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Yeah. So we took him down to 38 pounds. So he immediately switched to raw food. We put him into our normal exercise routine, which the dogs get a good minimum 30-minute walk hike every day, twice a day, right after they eat in the morning and right after they eat dinner. Plus, with him, as he started to lose weight, we started to exercise him more because we didn't want to overly stress his joints.
Right.
So he's been 38 pounds ever since.
Nice.
And his demeanor completely transformed. His energy level, the look in his eyes changed. Everything fucking changed.
Wow.
So
He's fun too.
Oh, he's
I mean,
a great dog.
Like what? Like I can
He
play.
hasn't bitten somebody in like I think 3 years, maybe.
He hasn't what?
Bitten anyone in like maybe 3 years. No, even with us, he's bitten like a dozen people. But that's totally Bob's fault.
No, but I was gonna say like,
sorry, Bob, if you're listening, but it's your fucking fault.
I play fetch with the dog in your house.
Oh, he loves to be chased.
Yeah,
he loves women.
He loves women.
He loves women.
Yeah,
and he truly loves that game of chase.
Mm-hmm.
He really does.
Yeah.
So, which I have trouble doing with him with DeSoto because then DeSoto gets jealous and gets in the way. So, but Bo has fucking zero health issues.
Yeah.
At 14. Nothing.
So that transitions us into DeSoto.
So
who is DeSoto? Why is he so jealous? And why is he not allowed on my lap?
So DeSoto, okay, so this is how DeSoto came to be. I went to volunteer at Best Friends Animal Sanctuary in Kanab, Utah, that everyone needs to go put on their bucket list right now. So it's 2016. Meg died May of 2016. And I went to Best Friends in November of no, that's a lie. August of 2016, because I always go to Best Friends after I go to Super Zoo. Super Zoo is an industry trade show in Vegas, and it is always in August. So in August of 2016, I went to Super Zoo, and then I went to Best Friends right after. And Bob, my boyfriend, currently ex-boyfriend, said when I left, he said, if you find a red healer.
Oh, I remember this.
Bring him home.
Can I say something really, really, really quickly?
Yes.
And I hate to bring it back to me at this moment of time during DeSoto's story, but you know, with this whole podcast and like talking to you and like your story, I feel like this brings me back to like the only way I can compare it to is like being an infant that doesn't have consciousness to an adolescent adult that does have consciousness. Like I start gaining memory of like personal anecdotal stories and memories of you at this point of our history together. But
when did you start working for Healthy Pet Products?
2016.
Oh,
2016. And I didn't, because like I was working so closely with like Megan and Danya, and I didn't see you as often, like, and I didn't have the relationship I have with HPP now. I didn't retain this information and these memories. I didn't have this personal relationship. And so I don't remember this stuff. But when you went to Best Friends and got DeSoto, that's when I have this conscious memory of personal relationship with like you and your life.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So
anyways, back to DeSoto.
That was my first time at Best Friends.
Yeah. And that's what I remember. I do distinctly remember you saying, if I see a red healer.
Because Natalie was with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember.
That was the year Trump got nominated into office.
That is wild.
And Natalie had
time that way.
An anxiety attack. She did.
Wait, that was that year?
I'm like,
that feels longer.
So the night of the election probably was like our last night there. And I was like, okay, we had already had 3 sleepover dogs. I'm like, we have to post these dogs. And I'm like looking on their website.
So I remember that because you guys were texting us. You had a dog that was like collie looking. And you guys were like,
No. That was different trip. That was Emily and Allison. That was Meg.
So for sure.
That was Meg coming through. For sure.
That's
another.
See? So that's what I'm saying. My consciousness came more to life 3 years ago. Okay, so
a red healer literally popped up on my phone, and I was like, Natalie, look. And he was so cute. So we, in the next morning, after I calmed Natalie down.
Yeah, from jumping off Zion.
Yeah. We went in And I said to Deb, who's the volunteer coordinator of Best Friends, that I said, I need to see DeSoto. And she's like, okay. So she picks up her radio, and
He was in, which hub was he in? The main one.
Maggie's Mercantile.
So Best Friends, real quick, just to like paint a pretty picture. Picture a lot of land and like
3,000 acres.
3,000 acres of land.
Just a little.
And small in buildings that are like hubs spaced out across. So Best Friends Animal Sanctuary is not all one building or all the buildings connected together. Right. It's all spread out. So you literally have to drive with a go-kart or a golf cart and your car to each hub. So there's multiple hubs that have varying levels of dogs that are available for adoption at different levels. So there's like a level that's relationship building, which means that we talked about this because we did a Best Friends episode, a relationship building where you have to do multiple meet and greets, ready to go right now. There was one that were puppies, new intakes, whatever. So that's why I asked what hub he was in, because we have driven to all of these different hubs.
And Maggie's Mercantile is right next to Dogtown. Yeah. Which is like the main hub.
Yeah.
So he was there, and right away a volunteer came and said, yeah, let's go see him. And we did a meet and greet, and DeSoto was like basically ready to go home with me.
Yeah.
Like as I walked away, he was like following me. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I have a red heeler.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he'd fucking go home with anybody.
Yeah. He would. Yeah.
But he would.
But here's the thing, if we were in a giant field, and because this used to be a TikTok trend, and like you were standing on the right side, DeSoto was in the middle, and then a miscellaneous person was on the left side, and the two people ran in opposite directions, he'd follow you.
Huh.
I mean, he would. He wouldn't follow a miscellaneous person.
How do we know that?
I mean, we need an open fenced-in field to find out, because he'll take off.
She's just trying to make me feel better because I have a love-hate relationship with DeSoto.
Yeah. He's so cute, though.
He should always be on CBD.
Did they tell you, though?
No. What?
He was not dog-friendly? Because he lived with tell him his backstory.
Oh.
He lived with a pack of dogs, right?
So he was found as a stray in a polygamist colony in Utah. So whether or not he was with a pack of dogs, I don't know. But
it was a pack of people. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Got confused there for a minute. Sorry. Polygamy.
And
pack of dogs.
There was no mention of dog aggression.
Mm-hmm.
So he may have developed that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
How did you find out he didn't like dogs?
It could be a leash thing.
Yeah. How did you introduce him to Bo? And then how did you find out that he wasn't great with other dogs?
So he was a sponsored dog, which means
someone had already paid for his adoption.
And his transportation and everything, because his transportation, and that was in 6 years ago, was $500 just to fly him back to Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a sponsored dog. So that was August. So I picked him up in November. They flew him to Pittsburgh, and it was a late flight, and it was kind of just this whole fucking shit. You have to go to a certain place to pick up the dog and blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
and it was late. And I was like, okay, this is how it has to go down. Because it was late, I was like, I'm getting a hotel room. Him and I are just staying in the hotel room. In the morning, Bob, I want you to take Bo and walk to the far end of our neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to park the car and get out, and we're going to walk the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then we're just going to fucking walk right in the house like nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
And
see what happens.
That's how we did it.
Yeah.
And
it was fine.
It was fine.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. whatever I did, I guess, is right because they get along totally fine. I mean, they have their moments, but they have cohabitated for 6 years.
For two male healers that were not bonded and that met as adults in one household, they do very well.
Yeah. So that's how that happened. And DeSoto, they didn't know how old DeSoto was. They estimated he was 3, which means he could be like 9 or 10 now.
Also, I would have said, if I look at DeSoto without hearing that, I would have said 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I also forget how long you've had him for, too.
6 years.
Yeah. And I said 4 or 5.
He definitely wasn't a puppy. I mean, when he definitely was not a puppy. So when I adopted him from Best Friends, that's when Instinct was donating all their food. So he was eating Instinct, and then I fucking cold turkeyed him to raw food, and he has 0 health issues.
For our listeners, Instinct has kibble, canned, freeze-dried, and raw.
Yeah, they do all.
So they were donating their kibble.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So he has 0 health issues. Oh, another thing about him.
His leg.
Yeah. They think, because he was a stray, they think he may have been hit by a car and dislocated his hip, and all of his foot and his metatarsals, they call them, the toes, like his foot probably was run over and crushed and deformed.
And then healed on their own.
And healed on their own because he was a stray. So they told me at Best Friends, they recommended a follow-up with a surgeon because there is a surgery for dislocated hips that they knock off the knuckle bone. They shove the leg bone up into the hip joint.
Gross.
It's a pretty tragic. And then scar tissue forms around the top of the leg bone. And
so he's had this?
No.
Oh.
So I took him. I did take him to a surgeon to get an opinion. And he said, absolutely not. Any surgeon that tells you that they think this is a viable option is bullshit because they just want to do the surgery. He's fine.
Okay.
Scar tissue is all.
I mean, you would not look at him.
You
and
would
think that he has
No.
had any type of damage.
No, you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, and his one and classic hip dislocation is a splayed leg. So when you see a dog with a back leg that the foot points outward and not forward, that's typically a dislocated hip. So
what do you do for that? Knowing that that's his
Connected.
history.
I do in Clover Connected. He gets joint support, has since I had him, and he's fine.
So
He's totally fine.
So you have 2 dogs that are healthy. DeSoto has a history of an accident, but doesn't reflect it. What do you feed them and why? Including preventative care, including supplements and rotation.
Okay, so I feed Answers pet food in the summer because it's so dense and calorie heavy. I feed it in the summer because they get fat on it in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And I rotate through all proteins. And then in the winter, I feed small batch. And every once in a while, I throw in another brand.
Random. Mm-hmm.
Like random. Sometimes I'll throw in a bag of Instinct. I'll throw in Raw Dynamic. I'll throw in Steve's. I'll throw in whatever. I rotate through all brands, all proteins. Neither dog has exhibited any type of protein allergy or anything like that. So
Kind of whatever.
yeah, kind of whatever.
Yeah.
Bone broth. So I used to religiously give both of them goat's milk. And then Bo and DeSoto both kind of went through a weird throwing up episode. And I switched to bone broth. And that's been like 2 years ago. So now they get bone broth and they don't get goat's milk anymore.
What about Bo had some issues with throwing up, right?
That's gone.
Yeah. What did you?
And it was bile.
And then
So I did milk thistle.
Okay.
I did a lot of cycles of milk thistle or the liver defense from Animal Apothecary.
Okay.
And I did the Adored Beast
Liver tonic.
tonic, and I did the phytosynergy.
Mm-hmm.
And Bo is not throwing up anymore. And so I don't know, right, wrong, or otherwise. I don't do goat's
But I will
milk
say
anymore.
though, and I also do this, and I believe in this, even though it didn't start off this way, but I rotate supplements and food because I really do feel, and I don't. So my grandfather had my grandfather had depression, and he was on the same medication and the same dosage for a really long time, and you notice it stops working because your body is so used to it. So that's why I think for my animals, if I continuously rotate through different immune supplements, if I rotate through various hip and joint supplements, if I rotate through various other supplements not constantly, but every so often, I'm exposing them to so much more and allowing for their bodies to absorb so much different new good nutrients. So it could be a combination of all those things that you gave him, or it could have just been one of those things that really solved it. We don't know. We're not perfect, listeners.
No, definitely not. And then the funny thing is I tried Steve's, and Steve's has goat's milk in the formula, and both threw up.
I do feel like, and I've said this, I feel like goat's milk is a great option for a lot of dogs. I don't think it's for every dog.
No, I agree.
I think it can be a little bit too heavy for bully breeds specifically.
I think a lot of bully breeds don't tolerate it. I think that short snout, and I don't. It's almost like there's probably not enough room to process the phlegm.
Yeah.
So that's Meg, that's Bo, and that's Desoto.
And that's 1 hour.
We talked for a fucking hour?
Yeah.
Shit. And I didn't even touch on Princess.
You touched on Princess.
I did?
You said that she was 18 years old and she was your childhood dog. You know, I think what's really important here and what's really brings to light in this episode is that we're not perfect ourselves. And this whole raw food, fresh food lifestyle for our animals is new. And it's ever evolving and it's ever changing. And we're constantly learning.
And it's not a guarantee.
It's not a guarantee.
No one should think it's a guarantee.
No one. And we're not asking anything, but we're just want to provide the information so that pet parents can, choose what they want to do.
It's not a guarantee, but it's going to give your pet the best possible chance at life, at a healthy life, at a vibrant life, even if it's a short life. Wouldn't you rather have a vibrant, healthy life?
Yeah.
Over if it's short?
We're here for a good time, not a long time.
Right.
And dogs are here for an even better time and an even shorter time.
Right. And if it's both, bonus.
Right. 100%. So this is a huge spectrum. And it's okay no matter what you do. First and foremost, love animals and show them love and show them care. And if you can provide high quality food and nutrients and ingredients and supplements, that's even better. But if a dog's in a home that's just loved and has a roof over its head and has warmth and has toys and companionship, that's what's really important, as well as raw food and supplements.
I mean, we just mainly want to convey, do the best that you can do and be an advocate for your pet.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's the main thing.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see. I have a dog named Kendrick Lamar, and he is 14 pounds, and he was thrown out of a car in Puerto Rico, And he's a very scared, he was more scared. He's a very nervous dog, but I got him when he was under a year old. And since I've had him, he's been on, raw, canned food here and there, supplements, bone broth, CBD. He gets CBD every day. He gets hip and joint preventative care every single day. So I am just very much looking forward to see how long he lives in, because he's a clean slate almost.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's rescue, and yeah, he's probably fed shit the first couple of years of his or months of his life, but for the most part, he's just living a life on raw food, rotating between many different companies, on a lot of CBD, on a lot of whatever I have at the time.
So what did you start out feeding him?
No idea. I don't know, because I was so excited for the first time in my life to have a dog that could eat anything. I bought everything.
Shocking.
I have no idea what he started on.
So for our listeners.
Yeah, I'll rewind a bit.
Yeah.
So
Sweet pea.
So I I was went to college. I was raised in California, and I went to college at Humboldt State. And while I was in college, Humboldt State in Arcata, California is a very, very small town. And so we only had one county shelter. And I don't remember how or why I started volunteering, but I started volunteering at the shelter, and I became very close with the rescue group affiliated with the shelter. So it was a MARA, MARA, and I forget the gentleman's name. It'll come to me. And they ran Redwood Pals Rescue. So they would work with the shelter, and any dog that was deemed unadoptable due to behavioral issues or health issues, they would work with, find foster homes for, or help train them so that they could be adoptable. And I worked very closely with them, and I would walk dogs every week, and I often brought home dogs to take to see how they do in a home environment, for a weekend. Mm-hmm. And then I started fostering medical needs dogs through Redwood Pals Rescue. So my first dog was a big blue-nosed pit bull mastiff mix named Triton, who needed a hip replacement. So I took care of him, and I did PT with him, and I crated him, and I took care of him before, during, and after his surgery until he was adopted.
Wow.
And that's truly when I fell in love with pit bulls and mixes and breeds and all that, that category.
You're 20 years old.
Yeah. And living, with roommates in an apartment or in a house with 3 other people, and taking, going to school and working.
Oh.
So I did a lot, and I became very close with this rescue and this shelter, and I was there weekly, and Titan got adopted. And then I took in another dog named, I forget his name, but he had really bad separation anxiety. He was another pity mix. And so every time we would leave, he would destroy a lot of stuff. And because, we were in a shitty house and my roommate stuff was everywhere, I had to swap out for another foster dog. So I was like, I just can't afford to replace all my roommate stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to school. I just don't have the time to work with a separation anxiety dog. So I had a Walker hound named Walker, and he was this big hound dog. And I fostered him for a really long time while I was still walking dogs at the shelter. And while I had Walker, we were working with a home for him. So he had a prospect of a house or a home to live in. And this really neglected, abused pit bull came in with a puppy, and it was Sweet Pea. And she had no hair on the bottom half of her body. She was inflamed. She was wrinkly. She was gross. She smelled horrible, but she was so sweet and so nice. And she was so small. I mean, she was 55 pounds, and she was so cute. And she had this cute little puppy, and everyone fell in love with her. And I was like, became very attached to her, and I just like kept my eye out on her. But she was in the unadoptable side because of her health issues, because she looked so bad, and she was clearly a neglect abuse case.
And she smelled
so bad. Yeah. And she came with the cutest fucking puppy as well. So I had always had my eyes on her, and I was like, you look at her and you're like, she's not going to be adoptable for a really long time based on her health and her appearance. So my foster dog, that adoption that I was talking about, went through, and he went into his new home. And I was like, I'd be open to doing a medical foster for this sweet pea. She's just like so nice, so fun, so sweet. And I had been maybe like a couple weeks without a foster dog, and I got a call from the shelter that her owners had come to get her. And the shelter was a county shelter, so it was run by the sheriff or like something along those lines. And he wasn't really didn't really care about the well-being of the dogs. He just cared about the money that was coming in and funding the shelter and everything. So he was like, you have to show proof that this is your dog, and you have to pay, like $400 or $200 or something to, because we've been taking care of her for this whole time. So you need to pay like $400, and then we'll release her to you. Also, Arcata is a town that borderlines Eureka. And Eureka is known for a lot of drug addiction, a lot of drug movement, a lot of homelessness. So the people who had Sweet Pea before, it was kind of figured out that they were using her for breeding to sell her puppies and had like a drug affiliation to them. So they did not have the cash at the time. So they left to go get money, like the $200, $400, I'm not sure. And the kennel staff called me immediately, and they're like, Sweet Pea's owners have come for her. We don't want to give her to them.
Right.
The sheriff wants to give her to them.
Oh.
Can you take her and hide her?
Oh.
And I was like, like 20 years old? And I'm like, sure thing. I'm like, jailbreak, let's go. Like, I'm doing not realizing the implications of my actions. And I sped up there. I threw her in my car, and I just took her home before her owners could come back for her because she was so bad. There was no way, if they could not afford $400 or $200, I can't remember the cost at the time, to bail her out. There's no way they could take care of her. And that's why she got as bad as she was. So because we were in California, though, I had a little bit more access to better vet care than I did, than in Pittsburgh probably at the time. Because this was like, I don't know, 2014 is when I got her. And the shelter paid for her to see their vet a couple of times, and they were just pumping her with ivermectin shots because they thought it was mange. They were dead set. Even though all of her skin scrapes came back negative. We did so many skin scrapes. Negative. Shoot her up with ivermectin. And I was like, this is fucked up. Like, this isn't working. Like, this is not okay.
So you knew early on that
I knew. I was like, this is
something wasn't
right. So I was like, let me try another vet.
Yeah.
And the shelter paid for one more vet visit. And they put her on a hydrolyzed protein diet. They're like, this is a skin infection.
Okay, wait, we got to back up.
Yeah.
We have to explain hydrolyzed protein.
So it was I don't know if it's still around, ZD diet.
Oh, it's definitely still around.
So she went on the ZD diet, and it's basically when they chemically formulate the food so that the body, it's not an actual protein, and that the body doesn't recognize it as a protein, so they cannot respond to it in a negative way as a protein allergy. So it's a heavily processed, heavily chemically formulated food as a prescription diet, and it's very starch heavy and plant-based heavy because they are using those ingredients as their protein to meet their protein minimums of a complete and balanced food diet. So I put her on that and it wasn't working and she was not getting better. And at this point, the shelter was like, we're not going to pay for her vet care anymore because she's not getting better. You spent a ton of our money. And so I was like, okay, fine. I'm still going to keep her. I'm still going to figure this out. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I was a college student. And I found a holistic vet in Northern California. And we did Atopica. And she recommended I do either a raw diet at the time or a plant-based diet. And she wanted to formulate a bean diet. And I was just like, I can barely afford this veterinary appointment. I don't think I can afford a homemade bean diet or raw food diet or anything like that, because I could hardly afford that visit in and of itself. And I can hardly afford her because I was a college student working part-time, also going to school, also paying my own rent and everything. So I found a super cute pet store in the city and I put her on Signature. And I got her off the hydrolyzed protein diet, and we're still doing a clay supplement, and we're still doing Atopica as the pill, and then something else, and Signature food.
Were you doing Redmond clay?
Yes. So we're doing all of that, and I don't know. She never got like better, but she didn't get super bad at the time.
Mm-hmm. And then?
Well, so then someone wanted to adopt her.
Oh.
I didn't tell you this. I don't think I've told many people this. So she had a home because I was just fostering her. I had not adopted her. I was like, I'm a college student. I have a pit bull. I would love to adopt her, but like, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to find a place to live. I don't even know if I'm going to have a job after college. You know, I don't want to move home. I don't know if I can afford a dog. I don't know if I can find a place to live with a dog, especially a pit bull with cropped ears. And so someone wanted to adopt her, and I did a couple meet and greets because Sweet Pea was, at the time she was young, she was bulletproof with other dogs. She was bulletproof with people. She was just so well-tempered, so well-mannered. She still is. But this couple wanted to adopt her, and they had a Boston Terrier, and we did meet and greets, and it was fine. And I was like, we do a group dog training class every Sunday. So why don't you take her to that training class on Sunday, and then I'll meet you at the end and see how it went. And I handed her off to her potential new owners, and they did the whole class with her. And I showed up at the very end of the class, and I completely ignored her. I completely ignored them because I didn't want to I wanted them to have their time to bond and to get to know each other. Mm-hmm. And I just beelined and started talking to someone else in the group, and Sweet Pea was screaming. And she's not a barker, and she's not vocal at all.
Yeah.
And she's a very docile dog.
Yeah.
She's not an active dog. And she was at the end of her leash screaming because she saw me. And I'm like, whose dog is that? And I was like, this class obviously did not work out very well for that dog. And I turned around and it's Sweet Pea, like freaking out because she saw me and I ignored her, and she just like wanted to be with me.
Oh.
So I was like, fuck. So that adoption obviously fell through because they were like, she clearly does not want to be with us. She wants to be with you. But I was like, so hard. I was in college, and like, you know, a couple months before, my mom was like, you cannot handle pit bulls. Pit bulls are so bad. Like, you have to be very careful. And I was like, so I need to adopt this dog. So then my parents ended up coming up to Humboldt for my graduation, and everyone met Sweet Pea and like fell in love with her. And I was like, I can't leave this dog. Like, everyone loved her. I loved her. Her and I were so bonded. I was like, I can't leave this dog here and not know what happens to her and me go off and live my life after college. So I literally signed the adoption papers the day or the week before I left college. And my dad had paid for a private dog transportation service to drive her from Humboldt County to Los Angeles. And my dad picked her up in because I did not want to move home. I was moving in with my best friend and his parents at the time. So I couldn't bring a dog into their lives as well because they already had a ton of animals. They had a giant, really old golden retriever and a couple of cats. So I was like, I have to adopt this dog. I don't have a place to live. I can't let her go. So my dad agreed and he paid for her to be driven down privately to Los Angeles. He picked her up in Los Angeles and my parents took care of her in San Diego.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And without me there because...
For how long?
So I couldn't find a job and I couldn't afford rent on my own. And I couldn't find a place that'll take a pit bull and me and a low income in Northern California.
Degenerate.
Yeah. College graduate, can't find a job. I did have a job, but it just didn't pay well enough. And I couldn't find a place to live that I could bring Sweet Pea with me.
Huh.
And so I was kind of like freaking out. And that's when my grandma got sick and my grandpa was sick. And I was my yaya. And I was like, wait a second. I hate my job. I want my dog. And I can't afford to live anywhere. So why don't I just go take care of my grandma and my grandpa? And that's a great excuse to quit my job. I can have my dog with me and I can be giving back to my family.
Huh.
So
it wasn't your dad's idea. I thought it was your dad's idea.
No, it was me. I stepped up to the plate and I was like, I'll go move. No one else was. Like my grandpa was dying. My grandma had just been diagnosed with cancer. No one was stepping up to the plate to take care of her or either of them. And I was like, I'll do it if I can bring my dog.
Yeah.
I'll move in.
Yeah.
And my family didn't want me to bring Sweet Pea. My aunt and my uncle were like, I don't feel comfortable with that dog in the house. And I was like, then I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's either me and the dog or nothing. Because I'm not going to leave. She's a really good dog.
Oh, I know.
And I know she's going to be helpful to my grandma. Like, I knew that she was meant to be with my grandma and I knew she was such a good dog. And I was like, so anyways, my dad was like, put his foot down. He was like, she's going. She's bringing the dog. It'll be fine. It's a good dog. And Sweet Pea and I packed up in my little car, in my Prius. My sister jumped in and we drove from California to Pittsburgh and we moved in and we lived in the basement of my grandma's house. And
was that Mount Lebanon?
Mount Lebanon. And Sweet Pea was the best thing for my grandma. And my grandpa had passed in transition. So he never got to meet I never had to take care of
Were
both
they
of
dog
them.
people though?
Ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, ish.
Yeah. For that generation.
Yeah. They were enough. But I hooked up like a little tie out in my front yard and that got my grandma out of the house.
Sure.
It got her out.
Yep.
I had a dog walker come when I started working and he would come and he would not only walk Sweet Pea, but he would sit there and talk to my grandma for 30, 45 minutes. Sweet Pea, my dog, would sit in my grandfather's chair and my grandma would talk to her. And, everyone kind of felt a little bit safer once they got to know Sweet Pea and how good my family, once they met Sweet Pea and knew how good she was, they kind of felt a little bit safer there with her. I was 23 years old. So I was like balancing taking care of my grandma, taking care of my dogs and being with friends. So there are some nights I went out and Sweet Pea would stay and everyone was like, no one's going to hurt my grandma with Sweet Pea there. But the problem was that my grandmother thought it was so fun to slip my dog, who had very severe food and health issues, chicken nuggets, lasagna, deli meat, bread.
Yeah.
And
grandparents typically are the ones that don't understand.
I took my grandmother to vet visits with me.
Yeah.
And I was like, you have to come so that you stop feeding my dog chicken under the table. And I caught her one time feeding, she gave my Sweet Pea the plate. And I was like, Yaya, you went to the vet last week. You're not supposed to do that. She's like, I didn't. And I was like, I just saw you give her your food. And she's like, no, I didn't. I didn't give her anything. And I was
So was she lying, or did she truly believe she didn't?
No, she was lying.
She was lying.
She thought she was like she was being nice to Sweet Pea, and she didn't want to have a conflict and whatever.
Yeah.
So that was hard.
Mm-hmm.
And when we moved out, Sweet Pea's health got a lot better.
Yeah.
But I do want to say my Yaya had a PCP, and she's very chatty, and she was talking to her PCP about Sweet Pea and told her Sweet Pea was a pit bull. And my doctor was like, her doctor was like, you can't live with that dog. Like, that's a dangerous dog.
Fuck.
And my Yaya was like, you listen to me. That is my baby. That is my dog. And she is the most docile dog you will ever meet. And we have conversations, and you do not say that about pit bulls, and you do not say that about my Sweet Pea. And I didn't even have the chance to defend, because I went to all of her doctor appointments with her, and I didn't even have the chance to defend Sweet Pea. My Yaya just like jumped in and was like, you listen to me. That is my baby. And Sweet Pea went to her funeral and to like her memorial and everything, because Sweet Pea was just like such a huge part of my Yaya's life, and it got her outside. It was a purpose for her to take care of something. It was a purpose for her to have someone to talk to when no one else was there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, anyways, once we moved out, though, Sweet Pea got on a raw food diet.
No more chicken nuggets.
No more chicken nuggets. She had been on Atopica. She had been on Apoquel. She had been on Cytopoint injections. And surprisingly, everything she did she got worse. She never got better. Mm-hmm. Or she would just fluctuate so intensely. And I would just take her off of it. I was like, I cannot sit here and watch my dog suffer. Like, you're giving her pills, you're giving her shots, whatever, and she's not getting better.
Right.
She's getting worse. Like, this is not a solution for me. And I think I've gone to 4 vets in Pittsburgh, including the dermatologist at PVSCC. And I've gone to vets who have made me cry and told me that it is my fault, that nothing I'm doing is right. And anyways, fast forward to today, she's on full raw diet, which I didn't think she could do. And she's thriving on all raw. She does do best, I will say, with HPP'd raw.
Yeah.
Because her gut microbiome was pretty destroyed from the whole process of over vaccination, immune compromise, steroids, going from Apoquel to Cytopoint to Atopica to this to that. And we do heavily dose her with CBD, immune support, digestive care. And then I rotate through mushrooms. I do a couple different hip and joint stuff. I rotate through, she gets an egg every day. A lot
every day?
A lot of moisture in her diet.
I think it's important for our listeners. So from a CBD standpoint, you do it. You said you do a heavy dose. You do it every day.
Yeah.
So I think the average listener would think that you were doing that because of anxiety.
Fair. I don't.
Right. So
I do it for anti-inflammatory, immune support, keeping her cognitive function, basically redness, inflammation, immune support, cognitive, wellness. And I do it for my Kendrick Lamar, who we talked about earlier. He's a healthy, he doesn't have any allergies. He doesn't have any illnesses. He is also very heavily dosed with CBD for preventative care and as like a wellness support. And he also gets hip and joint as well.
Yeah.
But I did not mention that I did Dr. Dodd for Sweet Pea. I did food allergy testing for protein in food. And I did Dr. Dodd's. I sent out a ton of blood work out to Dr. Dodd's. And she said the only thing that Sweet Pea could really eat was lamb, soy, and eggs. And I started off with just that, and she did not do well. And I think that was because her gut and her immune system were so depleted. And so I really boosted her gut and her immune system. And now she does stay on a lamb goat protein, but I am now able to switch it up and rotate through different brands. Before, she was so sensitive that I couldn't go from Primal Lamb to Stella and Chewy Lamb to OC Raw Lamb to Steve Lamb, but now I can.
And you did say goat, so you're able to do
goat. I haven't, just because it's not hard. It's not easy to find
in raw,
right?
So you haven't done carnivore goat.
I have, but I took her off kibble. All kibble.
Yeah. So carnivore is a air dried kibble. Okay.
She has been on carnivore goat. She has been on carnivore lamb.
Okay.
And I was supplementing that with her raw because I felt like at the time she was not thriving on just raw. Like she needed a little starch, a little carb to keep the weight on. Mm-hmm. While I was doing that, I was heavily supplementing her with, CBD, vitamin C, mushrooms, Phytosynergy.
Adored Beast.
From Adored Beast, Yeasty Beastie Protocol. So I was boosting her immune system and her gut while she was on a kibble raw blend. And then she was doing really well. And I just took her off of it. And now her energy has gone through the roof. Her inflammation has significantly decreased. Ear infections down. Little yeast, a little redness, depending on seasonal and what she gets into. Because sometimes one dog or Kendrick won't finish his food and she'll get to it before I do. The cat will throw up. She'll eat that.
How old is she, do you think?
I've had her for 9 years and she had to be 2 or 3 when I got her. 12, anywhere between 11 and 13.
Yeah.
And has so much energy now that you have to give her a bone or mentally stimulate her, physically stimulate her to like chill and watch TV.
Yeah.
Because she's like running around, like trying to like play, get your energy or get your engagement to do something with her.
Yeah.
And her face does not look like a 12-year-old.
No.
Her face looks very, and I've had her 9 years.
Yeah.
8-9 years.
Yeah.
And she's had at least 3 litters of puppies before that because her nipples were so stretched out and hanging so low for such a young dog.
Yeah.
She was overbred.
Yeah. So do you think those people wanted her back to breed her again?
Because she's a tricolored Staffordshire Terrier. She's gorgeous.
Yeah.
That's not something that you find every day. You could probably sell those puppies for a couple $1,000s.
Yeah.
Especially like in Arcata, where there's a really heavy weed growing community and people wanted protection dogs. I'm sure that's where they sold her puppies for. Yeah. So doing great, thriving, out of control, and I love it.
So what made you switch from Signature? How did we get you to switch to Raw?
Oh, that was easy. Just learning about raw. It wasn't switching to raw. It was switching to the right. I think for me and for Sweet Pea, for a dog that was so immunocompromised, like the raw aspect made a lot of sense. I started with goat's milk and I started with Signature, and it all made a lot of sense to me. I think when she was so young, what I didn't do and what I should have done, which I did later, is fundamentals. Her gut. Her immune system, which was really depleting and which was really bad. So I had to repair that first. And I think for me, what I realized with her is she did well on shitty food that wasn't really rich in protein and she didn't have to, when you're a human and you've only been eating fast food for your entire life and you don't have a strong gut and then you go to a salad and you get really sick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I needed to strengthen her and prepare her for such a big transition for a dog that was so sick and so immunocompromised and so everything. And so once I did that and I boosted that and I focused on her gut and her immune system, was I really able to see the benefit of raw. And not all dogs start as low as she is. Like Kendrick.
Right. Well, look at Meg. I mean, it's like polar opposite.
Right.
Like Meg went from kibble Purina one kibble to raw
Right.
and no issue whatsoever.
Right.
But
and Kendrick did too.
Yeah. So her and Kendrick didn't have underlying
Health issues.
And
I think Sweet Pea was, when you have a blue tricolored pit bull that was probably poorly bred and is a victim of poor genetics, already you have a problem. And that's where she came from. And then you add over vaccination, and then you add corn.
yeah.
It's just a recipe for disaster. And then, so I would say like the biggest lesson I've learned here is foundation,
Yeah.
gut,
Yeah.
immune system, foundation.
Yeah.
Once those are good, you're good. Your dog's good.
And how dare we say over vaccination?
So even my vet,
Yeah.
who's a mostly traditional vet, is like, you're never vaccinating this dog again.
Well,
How can you look at this dog and be like,
exactly.
She also does acupuncture,
Yeah.
does great with acupuncture.
But I mean, Dr. Christie is traditionally educated, trained, but on the vaccine vial says only give to healthy animals.
Right.
And a dog or a cat in a state of inflammation, in a state of allergy reaction, whatever, is not in a state of good health and should not be fucking vaccinated.
Right. Right. 100%. And after all of this, Christy doesn't push me vaccinating Kendrick.
No.
I mean, he's a 14-pound dog.
She doesn't push. No.
Yeah.
I walk in the door and she's like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, I need a senior blood panel on Bo. I need a senior.
Yeah. I asked her, Sweepy has some like hair loss, and I was like, do I do blood work? I'm down to like pay whatever, blood work, whatever. And she was like, melatonin.
Yeah.
She's like, just give her some melatonin
Yeah.
and see what happens.
Yeah.
She's like, I think
How's
it's
her
just
vitamin D level? I wonder.
Oh, I don't know.
I would consider vitamin D.
Okay.
Where's the hair loss?
Sides.
Flanks.
Yeah.
Melatonin definitely will fix that.
Yeah. And that's what she said. She was like, she looked into her book. She was like,
Definitely.
melatonin.
Yep.
We don't need to do much else.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, last but not least, I have a cat.
Yeah, but we're getting the wrap up here from
I know.
Sid. Jesus. She just shut our fucking lights out, dude.
Well, it's hard. It's hard when you have such great animals. We'll definitely have to split this episode up. I didn't think it was going to take this long. I have a cat who was found in the woods as a kitten. I took him in. He was on kibble and canned. He has had 2 UTIs, took him off kibble, all raw, fucking thriving. He is the garbage disposal animal. I can give him anything and he'll eat it. He is not imprinted on anything because I rotated through so many foods. Took him off kibble. He eats
Our
organs.
listeners don't know what imprinted is.
Fuck. God, I love that cat. I'm sorry. I never was a cat person.
I never was and never will be. Sorry.
And they're just funny. Well, they're also their personality changes weekly. But Sue, he will eat anything. I'm very lucky. And I don't know if it was because I switched all of his food around so frequently as a kitten and exposed him to so many different things. Because again, I'm like, oh, an animal that doesn't just have to have lamb and doesn't have to have a million supplements to get through a meal.
To get through life.
Yeah. And I go down to Woolies and I'll get raw chicken hearts and chicken liver and smelts and sardines.
Okay. For our listeners,
Yeah.
Woolies is a Pittsburgh staple.
Yeah. Fish market.
Fish market.
Family owned.
Family owned in the Strip District.
It's very much like kind of what you'd picture in Seattle, but just like in a grungier, smaller city.
Yeah.
And they have just like containers of chicken hearts and chicken liver. Mm-hmm. And I'll buy them and like he'll eat them.
Yeah.
Fully.
Yeah.
And he'll eat anything pretty much I put in front of him.
Wow.
And he'll even like, I'll be preparing everyone's meal at the same time and he'll start eating the dog's food.
Yeah.
He just loves food. He's so easy to feed.
How much do you think that is
Because I'm a multiple species household?
No.
Oh, okay.
How much do you think that it's him or your perception of what animals should eat?
I think it's me.
Yeah.
I don't think because I hear so many customers come in with cats that will only eat patés or that will only eat chicken.
And some of that is imprinting.
Right.
Which imprinting we have to define as well.
It's when a cat will find a texture or a shape, and that is the only thing that they will eat.
So literally there is science and studies and money put into the shape of the kibble.
Yeah.
Because cats get imprinted on the literal shape of the kibble. So if it's triangle shaped or a little fishy shaped or round or square, they will see that shape and only eat that shape.
Or texture.
Or feel that texture and only eat that texture.
So that's why there's cat food cans that are pâtés, shreds,
Minced.
morsels, loaves, minced.
Yep.
Because certain cats will only eat
Yep.
and proteins.
And that's where the air quotes here, guys,
Yeah.
picky cat phrase comes from.
Right.
And there's money in it. So if you have a kitten or young cat, the best thing you can do for your cat is to introduce as many shapes, as many textures, and as many proteins and brands as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Right out of the gate.
Yeah.
So
It's worth it too.
yeah.
Big time. Because our cat was starting to, I feel like, imprint on crunchy kibble.
Oh.
And he was getting UTIs. And I was like, that's it. Throw away the kibble.
Yeah.
That's it. We're
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And it's been 2 years now
Yeah.
since we've gotten rid of kibble.
Yeah.
No UTI. Also haven't taken him to the vet. But because he's not exhibiting those behaviors.
No need to.
And he will eat pretty much anything I put in front of him. And rotating. So he'll go from, he'll have chicken organs. I will get sardines from Trader Joe's, or I'll get smelt from Woolies, the fish market we had talked about. Or he'll have, pretty much whatever. He'll have 3 different proteins in a day.
Great. He's going to live 800 years.
He is.
Yes.
And he doesn't have that, like some cats have like that floppy belly. He does not have that. And he's 4 or 5 years old now.
They say that's normal.
They do, but Sue doesn't have that. Baby Sue doesn't have that. And hardly any hairballs. The shedding's what it is, but it's not terrible, I don't feel like. I don't feel like it's everywhere. It's in the stairs, but...
Well, shedding is going to happen no matter what.
Right.
Interesting.
But we're going to do an episode because he's been raw fed for 2 years. We're going to take an episode because Tony's allergic to cats.
So we're going to do an episode at your house.
Because the science behind that is because cats have evolved to have intercellular moisture, which means that they get their moisture and their hydration from animal meat and animal protein that is really only pure in raw foods, that they're able to absorb that. It affects their enzymes and their saliva, so that raw fed cats aren't as allergic. You don't have so much of an allergic reaction to them.
Right.
And canned food cats, it's not the same because that's moisture added. So it's still
Taken
great.
out and added.
Yeah, it's still great for them. It's still a high moisture diet.
Right.
But it's moisture added to meat, whereas raw, it's the purity of the moisture in the meat.
So
And intercellular moisture.
we should try to air that episode. We should at least record that episode in January or February. Because those are like slower months.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter when we air it, but we should
Sweet.
record it then.
I think he had 1 vaccination.
Great.
Also, yeah, I would never. He's not an outdoor cat.
So why
You vaccinate your animals to protect them
right
from the outside world.
right
My cat doesn't go outside.
right? So why on earth would you need a rabies
Why
vaccine?
am I going to vaccinate him?
Right.
We appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
We see you. We feel you.
We love you.
We love you.
If you're hearing this message, you've listened to our entire episode, and for that, we thank you.
If you have any questions or would like to follow our other projects, join our Toni Unleashed and Healthy Pet Products social media pages like Facebook and Instagram.
Please leave us a review and share episodes with your friends so we can further expand our message to listeners just like you.
Don't hesitate to tell us which topics you would like us to cover in future episodes. To get in touch, you can reach us by emailing info@tonyunleashed.com or by sending us a message on social media.
And reminder that episodes drop bi-weekly on Tuesdays. Thanks again for all your support.